popped 8 pounds, 21 inches long.
At 6:37 p.m.
on the 19th of May.
Yes.
After that occurred, they sent me and baby into a separate room, the recovery room, while they finished putting mama back together again. We were in there probably about, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. I don't remember if they had me try to feed her yet. I feel like they did, or maybe they were just feeding me some water. One of the two, I don't remember. They rolled mama in. She was still kind of out of it, but kind of in it. Did some skin to skin with mama. So the nurses in the recovery room sponge bath, not head to toe, but cleaned up everything around the incision and everything else. So then the postpartum room was ready, so they brought us there.
Recovery room.
And then that's where we lived for the next couple days.
Yeah, nurses were checking in on us every 2-3 hours. I think my favorite one was, I forgot her name. She was a travel nurse who lives in Charlotte. And she was like, hey, when you're awake, just press something. Because I don't want to keep, interrupting your sleep. Because I know sleep is the most important thing right now for you guys. Because, they were doing the regular checkups every 2 hours, I think. Checking on incision, checking on the baby, checking if I was in any pain. So the good drugs that they gave me, I think it lasted for about 24 hours. They also wrapped my legs around, what is it called? Because I'm not going to be moving, so they don't want me to get swollen up in my legs because of fluids.
Yeah, so basically they put air compression booties on that would squeeze and relax the muscle to keep circulation going. So definitely be prepared for that. I won't say it's a horror story type thing, but they will be coming into your room every couple hours to check on you and baby. So you're not going to get a really good night's sleep. That's why when you hear people say they came home from the hospital and they were exhausted, that's why. They're literally every 2 hours they're going to come in, check all on mama and check all on baby to make sure that everything's okay.
So I think a few hours after that, it was around nighttime, they gave Olivia a shot in the leg or something. I forgot what it was. Vitamin K.
Vitamin K. Yep. So,
yeah.
Definitely stuff to talk with your doctor about to determine what you do and what you don't want. But that will happen. They'll also come in and give a hearing test to the baby and an eye test to the baby. They'll get it all charted out. At this point in time, if you haven't determined a name for your child, at this point in time, if you haven't decided on a name for your child, you're going to want to decide, because you are going to get your form to fill out for creating your child's birth certificate or the birth records. And then, so they're gonna, bring in the diapers and all that kind of stuff. But really, you can bring nothing and you'll be fine. They have everything there.
They have everything. No matter what kind of delivery you do, vaginal or C-section, they have everything in their hospital. So the most recommended item that I brought from our house was, I purchased this robe that had Velcro, all the way down the front. They just opened from the front. It just made it so much easier for the nurses to check on my incision without me moving a lot, because the first time that I got on my feet, I had to go, I had a catheter on, but then they take it away for after some time, and then you have to like teach yourself how to relieve yourself again normally. So I remember the first time I got on my feet, it felt like I felt the incision, and I think it was like this long. And but it really made it easier for them to check it on my incision, and just so I don't get to move as much. But also, shoot, I was gonna say.
So also on that note, check with your insurance carriers to see if they're going to cover it, because if not, you probably want to get it prior to. But one thing that made a big difference was the belly band, because it kind of helps hold everything together. So it really just looks, if you can imagine, like a back brace but in reverse. It just kind of supported the stomach for the incision. So if you think that C-section might be in your cards, or you want to be extra prepared, I would look at getting one. But the hospital provided it for us, but our insurance paid for it, minus like $10 or something like that. So if your insurance isn't going to cover it, it might be something that you might be able to pick up cheaper prior to going to the hospital. So the other thing we did while we were there is, did you use the Depends while you were there?
No, I used it when we went.
So a lot of people, we did a lot of research and watched a lot of videos and stuff, and a lot of people talked about using the Depends Silhouette adult diapers. She did not, just used the stuff that they provided at the hospital, and it was fine once we went home. Other than the robe, we really didn't use anything that we brought with us.
Yeah, no, the Perry bottle. Well, no, I used the one from the hospital, but like at the house, I used the one that we bought. That again, regardless of how you give, for Perry bottle, is like gonna be a really good friend of yours.
And if you don't know what the Perry bottle is, it's really just a squirt bottle with an angled neck for you to clean down there afterwards, because it's going to be sensitive. So every time that when you use the restroom, you're not going to want to wipe with the paper. It's going to hurt too bad. So it's basically a handheld bidet. So the other thing we did while we were in the hospital is any place that we could cram diapers and formula, we did, because they're going to bring it in, and your insurance is paying for it. So we stuffed it away.
No shame.
No shame.
No shame.
If you put it in the room and I could stick it in a bag, it went in a bag.
I still remember that first meal that I had after giving birth. I think it was a cheeseburger. It was the best cheeseburger I've ever had. I was starving. Getting everything off. I mean, the hospital food was not the best, but you just gave birth, so you're exhausted from just dealing with this new part of your life. So,
And partners, it's the cafeteria for you, my friends. Oddly enough, we had her boss and his wife were also in the hospital delivering at the same time. So as a gesture, and just something that you can think of maybe for if you know people who are in the hospital, we just text them a digital gift card for DoorDash, because they'll deliver to the hospital, and usually they leave it by the front door, so you can go down and get some non-cafeteria food if you're in a scenario like we were where you couldn't leave. After about a day or so, they lifted that restriction, so I was able to go home and get Grandma or Lola to come and see the baby. So spent a few hours there, then brought her back home. So I think we stayed a total of 3 days after.
3 days, because well, hold on, like we got home on the 22nd, we got there on the 18th. Later the 18th, night of the 18th, 19th, 20,
Yeah, but I think it was 4 days after
Yeah.
birth, right?
But it's they were willing to. No, they were like, I was okay to go, but I asked for an extra day to be babied some more because it was just I had the best experience, especially with the nurses. I think looking back at the whole ordeal, it was them that really made it like. Aside from him, I was I was very scared hearing a lot of bad things that happened to some pregnancies, but the nurses at Cape Fear were really rock stars. Taking care of me, our baby, and my husband.
Because I'll tell you, in not in a derogatory way or anything, but Mama was not willing to do anything for herself. Did not want to, and not because she didn't want to do it, but because of the pain and the fear of she felt like she was going to rip her incision open anytime that she moved. So they were very, understanding, took things slow. It was all at the pace of Mama. They were not forcing her to do anything that she did not want to do if she did not feel comfortable with doing something.
I've never even stayed at a hospital. I've never had any surgery, never been anything like that. So
I mean, they literally stood there with her half propped up for, a good 2 minutes before moving another couple inches. So we got good at manipulating the bed to help her get up, get down, all those kind of things. I do remember she definitely had some difficulties finding a comfortable position to where she was not doing a lot of movement using her abdominal muscles. Because, I mean, you can imagine if you ever pull a muscle in your stomach, how much body movement is connected to that core. So it was definitely a challenge, but they were great the whole time, and pushed her just enough to get her to try things, but not to the point where there was definitely no coercion or forcing with any of the stuff. So that was really good. So she did elect to stay an additional day. Just to make sure that everything was good, which was fine. It just gave me opportunity to stock more formula and diapers. I mean, whatever. So for I think the first week, baby slept all the time. Woke up to eat and right back to sleep again. I think they say expect your baby to sleep 23 hours a day. Now, for us, there was only one concern that I had when changing one diaper. There was a lot of mucus in the diaper, so I was concerned about that, like stringy stuff coming out of the baby. And they said it's perfectly fine. It's normal. It's actually the hormones from the mom passed on to the baby that's coming out. So
it was extra hormonal because we had our baby through IVF.
Right. So, so that kind of freaked me out when we were there. But once the nurse came in and talked about it, everything was good to go.
That's where we also met her pediatrician. Is the next day, May 20th. It was 10 in the morning because I remember her coming in, Dr. Michael Way, and she introduced herself. She was like, "I'm actually a pediatrician. Do you want me to be your pediatrician now?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah, so the on-call pediatrician comes in. That's who checks out the baby. She asked us if we already had selected a pediatrician for the baby. We said we had not, and she said that she had room to take her on if we would like to. And right then and there, we said, of course. So from the get-go, she's always had the same pediatrician. Definitely bring your car seat into the hospital. The nurses were really good with helping us, make sure that the baby was properly secured in the car seat. Those are the specialists. So absolutely bring your car seat in so they can take a look and help you with that first buckling in. So after that, we went home. We brought the baby home.
Whew. Oh gosh, the car ride on the way home. We live about 6 miles away from the hospital, but the car ride for me anyway, on the way home, I was not prepared for it. Rafael was extra careful driving over speed bumps, you know, turning. It was, I don't want to go through that again. It was not pleasant.
She definitely felt every bump increase in the road.
It's like I felt all my insides shuffle around me.
So be cognizant of that, and be prepared for that. So then it was home life. Again, most of the time, baby was just sleeping all the time.
I think that was the toughest part for me. Since the whole thing was the first few weeks home, adjusting to everything, healing, not getting a lot of sleep.
So thankfully, when we got home, there was enough time for me to have off work to help as much as I could. But there's definitely an adjustment period. And it really helps if, you know, you set clear defined roles of what's happening. So obviously if you're going to breastfeed, obviously most of the feeding is going to happen with mama. If you're bottle feeding, you know, partners, if you have the ability, try to handle that as much as possible so mama can sleep and rest and heal up. For partners, you know, it's very easy. I mean, I fell victim of it. It's very easy that if you see mama up and moving around, to, you know, kind of forget exactly what they went through. And, you know, you kind of get in your mindset of, well, they're moving around, so they're fine. But don't forget what they went through. I mean, I fell victim of asking Izzy to do things that she couldn't or shouldn't be doing, because you're tired too, so you're not on top of your mental game. But just know that you've got to remember those. I mean, it caused some friction for us. So just make sure that you know, it's something that you keep in your mind and keep in the front of your mind. And just because they're moving around doesn't mean that they're all healed up and feel fine. So definitely be cognizant of that kind of stuff. You should really try to take on 110% of the tasks, and then mama can do what mama can do, and mama can do it. So very cautious of that as being a supportive partner in the process. So first month of life, for the most part, was pretty smooth. I mean, we're pretty blessed with a peaceful child, except for the fact of figuring out what formula was working for her. So we started with regular formula, the Similac, the same stuff that we left the hospital with, and everything was fine for about a week.
Yeah, about a week.
About a week, everything was fine. Everything was normal, no issues. But then after that, there was a lot of reflux, and a lot of like unconsolable screaming. Like, you could tell the baby was in pain. A lot of spitting up, a lot of colic. And then I had remembered that my other children were lactose intolerant, so we thought maybe that's what the problem was. So we switched to soy formula, and it seemed to do the trick for about another couple weeks.
Yep.
Baby was back to normal, no issues.
But then it was my 2 week or something. I had an appointment with my PCM, checking postpartum. Maybe I was just telling her what Rafael's telling you guys now, that we switched her to soy. She kind of like made a face and asked me, it's not the pediatrician that recommended it, so is she really lactose intolerant? Maybe just try some lactose-free cow's like formula still, but it has cow's milk, something like that. I can't even remember what she said. And I told Rafael that when I got home, and we actually had samples still that we didn't care to open or try because we were afraid from, like messing up again or something. Because she seemed to be doing really well with the soy anyway. I think she was doing well with the soy. But the big recommendation there was to not make such a drastic change from completely going to something that was based on lactose to something that was plant-based, because it's a complete change of diet without, the doctor actually suggesting it. But we didn't know that.
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, when we would join all the baby registries and stuff, and if you register with Infamil and Similac and all those formula brands, they will send you sample cans of their formula. So another reason why do not stock up on formula before you give birth, because if you're going to formula feed your baby, you're not sure what formula is going to work for them. So last thing you want to do is buy a whole bunch of formula and find out that your baby's not going to do well with it. So just something to think about when prepping for baby. So with the soy formula, there wasn't the unconsolable screaming anymore. So we thought that was doing good, but the poop was still kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was still like, it was almost like very liquidy with curdled milk in it.
Yeah.
And she was still having like gas issues. So she still had gas issues, but obviously not as bad as it was, because she wasn't uncontrollably screaming anymore. So we just kept pumping her full of gripe water, and that kind of did the trick. But it was still something that we were dealing with. So after her OBGYN had mentioned about going to the soy formula, you have 3 types of formula. You have, well, there's more than that, but for the most case, you have either regular formula, you have calorie thick formula in case your baby was like a preemie or needs to put on additional weight. Then you have soy formula, which is just soy, plant-based. And then you have a lactose-free formula, which is basically like Lactaid for the most part. So it still has cow milk, but the lactose has been pulled from it. So that's what we switched to. So now we went to that one, which is was that an Infamil?
Yeah, Infamil.
So
Ultramigin, lactose-free, sensitive.
And everything's been great since then. So
yes.
So those were really the only struggles that we went through with the first month. Other than that, I mean, baby was great. Already on a good schedule. Would wake up to eat. And then as she progressively got, weeks older, she'd stay awake for a little bit longer, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes, and then go right back to sleep again. So we got blessed with that. Most of the time at night, we were waking her up to feed versus her waking us up to feed. We kept her in the room with us, but in a pack and play. I never really agreed with buying bassinets just because they grow out of them so quickly. I mean, like one of our pack and plays had a bassinet attachment to it.
Both of them do.
And I think she grew out of that within the first month.
Yeah.
So we just put her in a pack and play that had the upper shelf that you could put in as an insert, and she slept in that. All right, so month 2, baby gets her first set of shots.
I think it was 4 shots. Biggest advice, I mean, this is my first baby. I've never even changed a diaper until her. Have some Tylenol ready because we didn't have any infant Tylenol ready, and she spiked a fever, so we took her to the emergency room around midnight. So it was just a normal reaction, but you know, it's a newborn that has a fever of 101 or 102. You're gonna get scared. So that was just my biggest advice, is to have that on hand.
So on that note, also, you know your pediatrician, know your pediatrician office. We obviously did not, because when this occurred in the middle of the night, we called the nurse's line of the regular hospital to get information or get what they think we should do, and they told us to bring her in,
Yeah.
Which, as she mentioned, we did. And when we got there, really, they did nothing. They just checked her vitals, checked her temperature. It was still a little bit warm. We mentioned that we gave her, that she had her shots. So they just charted it up to reaction to the shots. They gave her some baby Tylenol there to help bring the fever down. Now, during this time, the baby wasn't like fussy or anything. She was just lethargic with the temperature, and that's where our concern was. Now, while we were there, we learned that our pediatrician had its own nurse's line, and they probably would have told us not to bring the baby in. But when you're calling a regular hospital or regular ER in the middle of the night, chances are there's probably not a pediatrician there to field that call, so that's why they told us to bring her in. Whereas if it was a pediatrician or a pediatric nurse, they probably wouldn't have told us to bring her in. So just know the procedures at your pediatrician, what they would like you to do. You know, in that first month, I think we had a pediatrician appointment every week up until that first month. So, you know, when you're going to get your baby shots, if you choose to immunize your baby, have the conversation with the pediatrician then. Hey, what's the danger zone? When should I be concerned about this? You know, because they'll tell you, oh, expect a fever. Well, know what that fever is, because children already run warm as it is. So knowing, like, hey, up to 101 is fine. If they start getting 102, 103, you got to be concerned. Just talk to your doctor, figure out like what that criteria is in their mind, just so you're more prepared for it. Another thing that I think is important to talk about, we've mentioned it before, we both work full time. Nothing has changed with that. Neither one of us became a stay-at-home parent or anything else. For the first few months, her mother, my mother-in-law, stayed with us, so that definitely helped with taking care of the baby. And I now work from home, but you know, that still involves meetings and having to be at work even though I'm at home. So we still had to do childcare. Everybody has an opinion, all right? You know, real life when it comes to children, it's just like Facebook. Everybody's got something that they want to say. It's important for you to know what you're comfortable with. Don't let anybody else tell you that decisions that you've made make you a bad parent or make you feel that way. We were originally scheduled to put Olivia into a big chain store type daycare facility, which isn't cheap. I mean, we were looking at a little over, we were looking at close to $1,500 a month.
No, 1200.
Yeah, 12 something, whatever it was. Either way, it wasn't cheap. And nobody has an issue with that. Then we found somebody who provides childcare from their home. I mean, they're fully licensed and all that kind of stuff. They're just not.
My coworker's kid goes.
Yeah,
there.
somebody, a friend of the family's child goes there. He's never had any issues. At this point in time, I think the child was a year old.
Yeah.
So we went and met her at her home, saw, you know, what she has for the children, saw some of the other children that she cares for, and there was no red flags. And now we're talking, you know, half.
Not only half the price, but it's like there was only 3 other kids that she was taking care of, 3 or 4 other kids, as opposed to a daycare facility that has infants and toddlers with maybe 2 or 3, you know, teachers is what they call them.
Yeah, so where we were looking at, and again, nothing bad about the place. I mean, it was nice.
It was top notch.
But, you know, all the children were separated by age groups, but the infants shared a space with the toddlers. It was separated, but it was one room with child gates basically separating the two. But I think the ratio was like 10 to 2, either 1 or 2 to 10, 1 teacher or 2 teachers to 10 children. And I mean, they were managing fine. There's viewing windows, and we went to tour that place, and we could see that they would bounce from one child to another, to another, to another. But you know, think about it. If there's 10 infants in there and 1 caregiver, and they're all losing it at the same time, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
And when we went there was no other infants that she was caring for.
That was around her age.
And you could see that she was engaged with the children. She was teaching the children, you know, all the way down to potty training children. So, so we felt comfortable with it. We were, I mean, not saying that any kind of love is different for anybody, but we, you know, we obviously 1000% wanted this child. I mean, we went through IVF. There was nobody could say it was an oopsie baby or anything else. I mean, we planned everything down to ovulation. So, I mean, it gets no more. We were into this child with everything. So trust me when I say that, you know, we were comfortable with what we saw and what we experienced. But some people, when they heard that we were going this route versus the big chain childcare, made comments that, I mean, I didn't hear the comments, but you know, it upset Izzy. So
Oh yeah, on Facebook.
Just know that.
Well, just not even that. Like, just like some people are like saying, "Oh, you're not gonna stay at home," and no.
Look, that stuff is your decision, you and your partner's decision to make. What you feel comfortable with is all that matters. Everybody else is going to have an opinion.
Nobody else is going to love your child more than you do, you know. So, and you know what you're doing is best for you and your family. Stick with it.
So all that to just say, I would hope for the most part everybody knows the difference between being a good person and being a bad person to your child. Make the decisions that are right for you and your family, and don't get wrapped up on what anybody else has to say, because everybody's going to have something to say about every aspect of everything you do in life, and it doesn't change any when you have children. Month 3
was just the I guess adjustment of, you know, I started working back full time then, and then just finding our routine with him. He takes and picks up Olivia from daycare 99% of the time. So that works out well for me, I guess, because I have a more, not unpredictable schedule, but unpredictable availability when it comes to work. Sometimes I just can't leave at a certain time. My job is, I can't even predict when I'm going to have a lunch break during the day, and my hours are not as predictable as well. Typically I work around 9:30, and on a good day I leave at like 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes I'm there till 10, which is rare.
So yeah, just get comfortable with whatever routine works best for the family, and that's what you go with. At this point in time, Grandma is not at the house, so it's all us now, and knowing those schedules. So figure out what schedule works, stick with it, because not only are schedules good for you, but it's very important for a child. So hopefully at this point in time, your baby is on a good sleep schedule. You should be to about as normal as possible for sleep at this point in time, because throughout this time, as the baby's getting bigger, the more they're eating, which also increases the amount of time that they eat in between feedings. I think at 3 months old, it was 4 hours in between feedings, and all that is going to be based off of the size of your child, how much your child is growing, and what your pediatrician has to say. So anything that anybody else says doesn't mean anything. Your child is going to determine how much they eat. The good thing is you can't overfeed a child. They will literally throw it all up. So if it doesn't fit, it's coming out. If that only worked for me.
Or if it's not enough, they'll ask for more.
Yeah, so 1,000 people can tell you what that ratio is, but they don't know. So 4 months, I can't think of anything.
200 shots again.
Yeah, 4 months was another round of shots.
This girl doesn't cry. Mommy cries. But she's just a tough little one. It's, you know.
So that's another thing. So with this whole COVID thing, they only allow one parent back with a pediatrician. So, you know, it's another thing to think about. Who needs to be back there for those appointments?
You take turns.
In the beginning, I did most of it. Now that she's a little bit older, we try to make it so that Izzy goes with her. Just because, as I've mentioned before, this is not my first child. This is her first child. So I feel better if she's able to sit with a doctor and ask the kind of questions or concerns that she has that I might dismiss because of being down the road before. So, you know, it's another dynamic to think about if you are like us in our situation, a mixed family, where one parent is on their first child and one is not. that might cause some frustration or some friction between the two of you, because the more experienced parent will, I will be the first one to say that I have a tendency to brush off Izzy's concerns about things, because to me it's not a big deal, but for her it is. So so to help combat that, that's why I try to get we try to make it so that Izzy can go to the doctor's appointments, so she can hear from the pediatrician what to be concerned about and what not to be concerned about, which led all the way up to the first major thing. I guess we'll call it major thing at about almost 6 months, about 5 months, 3 weeks or so, that Olivia caught her first stomach bug.
No, she was already 6 months. It was around my birthday.
So yeah, just prior to, like, probably a day before she turned 6 months old, she caught her first stomach bug. It started with, she had a diarrhea diaper the night prior.
And puking, like 20 seconds after.
And vomiting right after eating. So the very next day, not thinking anything major was going on, we went to Virginia to celebrate Izzy's birthday, and we stopped at a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, and
oh God!
Then the projectile vomiting started, like severe, like almost everything that she took in came out, and like poop through a diaper diarrhea, and it got to the point where she did not even want to drink formula.
That was the scary part.
She would take a couple sips and gag.
Yeah. Because our baby is an eater.
Absolutely.
She would down maybe a whole 6-ounce bottle within a minute, feeding herself.
So it was definitely some area of concern. I mean, she would go from one feeding and not really eat like an ounce, to another feeding and eat all 6 ounces and throw up a little bit. But every diaper was diarrhea, and I mean like no consistency diarrhea. So, the concern starts to become hydration at this point in time. So we tried to give her some water, and she took the water and like guzzled the water. So then we try to follow it up with formula, and as soon as like the formula hit her mouth, she would gag. But I knew as long as she stayed hydrated, it would be okay. So thankfully, she continued to take water and small sips of formula here and there. So when we got back home, she went to the pediatrician. They ran a bunch of tests. Everything came back negative, so it had to have been just a stomach bug. But we're now talking like 4 days into it, and it was still the same thing.
But the diarrhea got a little bit better. No more puking.
Yeah, there was the vomiting stopped, but the diarrhea was still there, and the disinterest in formula was still there. So we supplemented with Pedialyte, and then on Thanksgiving Day, all was good. She was back to slamming bottles and mashed potatoes and yams and everything else. So, but it was definitely a tense few days. And thank God, she was not crabby. She was not. It was like everything was normal. She just didn't want to eat. Because I think it would have melted our hearts if it was that on top of everything else. So we lucked out there. We can't tell you a whole bunch about teething at this point in time because she's still Gumby. They did say at her 6-month checkup that she does have 4 that are getting ready to push through the gum line. But along with that, and along with the stomach bug type of deal, you know, just always have Tylenol on hand. Talk to your pediatrician about how much they should be taking, even before they're sick. Like when you're having regular appointments and checkups and all those kind of stuff, because I'm here to tell you, everything that goes into a child will say 2 years and younger, consult your pediatrician. So, you know, Pedialyte, infant Tylenol, all that stuff, 2 years and younger, the only thing it's going to say on there is consult your pediatrician. So it might be good for you to talk to your pediatrician about all these types of things. Hey, if I have to give them Tylenol, how much should I be giving them? If I have to use Pedialyte, how much should I be giving them? X, Y, and Z. So anything that you hear from anybody at any stage in life, doesn't matter. Talk to your pediatrician. Make sure you get it from them. We started solids at 4 months.
Yes.
We started with just rice cereal and just a little bit, 1 tablespoon to be precise. But again, talk to your pediatrician. There's, you know, oral milestones that they have to go through to determine whether or not they're ready for it. Like we mentioned, she's an eater. I think she was ready for solids when she came out. But we started with just the cereal. Now at 6 months, I think she's had everything.
She had apples,
She's
bananas,
apples,
donuts,
bananas,
yams, potatoes, papaya.
I will tell you this. We make her baby food.
He makes the baby. I don't do anything.
But it's a super easy process, much cheaper. You actually know what's in the food itself. But you know, I literally just boil the food and blend it into a puree. And I'll tell you, I haven't looked for quite some time, but you know, one jar of baby food's about $1. I can buy a sweet potato for about 50 cents, and that'll make 6 jars worth of baby food. So it's definitely more cost effective. And they're definitely getting a different set of vitamins. The rest of my kids, I fed them, you know, the jar of baby food. Well, with Olivia, whatever color that she eats, that's the color that comes out. So
the orange poop with the carrots.
Yep. So you can definitely tell that they're getting a different set of vitamins from that food.
And the smell is different too. When it's a banana,
you will see the banana seeds.
Yep.
So that is everything up to 6 months. It's definitely been a blast. We've definitely been blessed. At this point in time, at night she eats 8 ounces and will sleep all night. And by all night, I mean like 11 hours. She comes home from daycare. I pick her up at 5. She usually falls asleep around like 6:30 or 7, and then we wake her up at 7:30 in the morning to eat breakfast, so that there's enough time to get her ready to go back to daycare. So yeah, not too far down the road. The struggles end, and you're able to sleep all night. So
hang in there.
You'll get there.
Yeah, but also savor every moment. I mean, earlier Raphael said maybe he should have kind of like not asked me to do some things, because you know he saw me moving about, but at the same time, as me, being a first-time mom, I kind of really just pushed myself into maybe doing the feedings, even though my mom and Raphael were like volunteering or like asking me to just like stay in bed or do this and do that, because I don't know, I feel like later on they grow so fast, like changing the diapers and the nighttime feedings and, you know, the washing of the bottles, all that will go away. So I don't know, to me, I was just enjoying every minute of it. Don't really push yourself to, because I think I did, push myself too much to where I was not able to heal well, or heal as fast as I was hoping. So that was the only backfire with that one. But you know, it's enjoy every moment of it, because even though there was that healing issue sort of
Go
stuff,
past this light.
I
Then
mean, I
at the
loved
next
every little
one,
minute I
turn
spent
right.
with my daughter.
So another note on healing for all the C-section mamas out there. We are 6 months into it, and mama still feels that C-section. So
Yeah.
just something to think about.
Yes.
You're not a freak. It is what it is. And another thing of note, as far as like your mental health is concerned, one thing that's been very difficult for mama, and I see it, and whether or not she will ever admit it or talk about it, because of her schedule and because of Olivia's schedule, she does not get a lot of time. She does not get a lot of mama baby time. By the time she comes home from work, Olivia's asleep, and so that mama can rest in the morning time, she only gets about 30 minutes with her. So you know, make time when you can make time. That's all you can do. Just be comfortable. Hopefully you're comfortable with that. But yeah, that's all we can say. Other than that, I think we're all caught up. I know we missed 1,000 things that happened, but that's because there's 10,000 things that happen in a day with a newborn baby, and hence the reason why we haven't recorded in forever. Because we want to enjoy, as much as we like passing on the information, we really wanted to take the time to enjoy our family and our addition to the family. So other than that, thanks for listening to a long drawn out thing. Bye.